Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Odd Virginia. My name is Alex Koska, and I'll be your host. And it has been a while since we've spoken last. Missed you guys. How you been? A lot of people have been wondering why we haven't put out an episode since October, and to be honest, there's a fair number of reasons for that. So sorry to have kept you guys waiting and in the dark. I did make a vlog post on our YouTube channel under the vlogs playlist if you want a little bit more information as to why that is. I just want to thank everyone who has reached out to me personally, made sure everything's going okay, and to see if there's anything they can do to help with the show. Unfortunately, a lot of things that could be done to help with the show are kind of specialized or technical and would probably require some sort of compensation, which at the moment is not possible for me to do, at least as far as a show like this is concerned. I just don't make any money on it. So, you know, as much as I'd like to have a nice big team and really put out something great, it's definitely not in the cards until I start making a lot more money at my normal job or until I'm just caught up on my finances and can start affording to do that. The one thing that can always help is directing guests to my inbox, oddvirginia@protonmail.com. If there's anyone who has any story they'd like to share, big or small, and is not afraid to come onto a platform like this to share it with people publicly, that's the one thing that keeps this show going. So if you have anything, or if you know someone who does, put an email in the inbox, oddvirginia@protonmail.com. I would love to hear from you. Now, currently tonight, I have a friend of mine who has a fairly small story, but something that sent him running when he was a kid, and I thought it would be worthwhile to put on this show. So we're going to toss it over to Matt here in just a second.
So first up on tonight's show, we've got Matthew in the studio. Matt, I want to thank you for coming down to share your stories. I know you don't have much prepared, but you said you've got a little something you could share with us today?
Yeah, absolutely.
And first of all, just give us a little bit about yourself. You know, who you are, what you do.
My name's Matt. I've known Alex here for quite a few years. I'm a mechanic. I, play games and, enjoy life here in the Blue Ridge Mountains.
Very good. So you didn't actually tell me anything really about what your story involves. So if you want to, you can just sort of give us a bit of a set and setting and take it away from there.
Sure. So the story takes place in Stewart's Draft at a friend of mine's house. I used to stay there all the time, and his parents always said, don't creep around at night. The ghosts will come out, and I just always kind of thought that was a ha-ha thing, and so, I stayed there many nights, 10, 11, 12, somewhere in that range, middle school, high school. But I do recall one night we were playing video games out in the living room, and we stayed up kind of late, and we decided to go to bed at, I don't know, probably 2, maybe 3 o'clock. And so I go back to the guest bedroom and fall asleep, and I sleep for a little bit. I wake up probably an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours later to go to the bathroom. And I come out of the guest room and I hear footsteps. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, this is the first, I would say, maybe paranormal experience I'd ever been through. So I'm like, I follow the footsteps down the hallway. And because I thought maybe his dad got up to go downstairs or something like that. So, and keep in mind, this is in the winter too. So, they had to go downstairs to, do whatever they did, So, I follow the footsteps and they go down the stairs into the basement. And, as I'm going down the basement, I round the corner and go into the opening of the basement. And, much like in the scene in Home Alone, the furnace kicks on.
Yep.
And you see the fire come up from the grates, and it obviously in my mind at that time I was like, oh my God, that was terrifying. But
it's a jump scare.
Yeah. So probably purely coincidence, but at that time that definitely got me. So I scrambled up the stairs and went to the bathroom, went back to bed. But I do recall a couple other times, being over there, and after that, I'd lay in bed. It'd take me forever to go to sleep, and I'd hear footsteps, and you'd only hear it like once, maybe a night. Every other time you'd stay there, but yeah, that was definitely that was probably one of my first experiences with something paranormal, and it kind of opened my eyes to the things that you don't see.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Thank you for sharing that. And at that age, you said you were 10 or 11.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Hearing, being prefaced first by, the ghost comes out at night, and then hearing the footsteps, that's always been really frightening as a kid. Being an adult, it's much easier to just sort of brush it off your shoulder like it's nothing. But then the furnace kicking on as soon as you go downstairs. Could be coincidence, sure, but that's enough to send someone running.
That definitely got the heart rate going.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. And you said also recently that the place that you work at is apparently haunted. And I worked there for a short stint last winter, just in between jobs. I needed a little extra income. And I remember Scott also talking about the place possibly being haunted.
Yeah. So the background on this place, and I hope I get the details right on this, but back in the 70s, AMC was a branch. Well, it's not a branch. It was car manufacturer that broke off from Chevrolet and started their own company. Well, this family decided they wanted to open a dealership on this property. So they had the main offices up front, and then down where our shop is, it's the service area. Well, so that was the late 70s. In the early 80s, AMC, they went bankrupt, and the company shut down, and it was a huge financial blow to the family that had opened it. And so the story goes that that's not the story goes. The guy who owned it, the father who owned it, shot himself in one of the service bays one night. I guess just from financial stress and everything just kind of collapsing around him. I guess it was just too much to take. But we have heard, we'll stay late at night at the shop, and we'll hear, we have wooden flooring in the office part of the building. Mm-hmm. And in my part of the shop, it's right next to that hallway. So if it's late at night, kind of quiet, you do hear footsteps coming down that hallway. And we've all heard it. Most everybody who's worked there has heard it. So it's not just like I heard this thing, but everybody's heard it.
The footsteps again.
Yeah. Also, on top of that, one of the sons was in the area a couple months ago, and he stopped by. And, he walked around the property and was, showing us old things. This is where this used to be. This is where, I used to service this here, whatever. And he made a comment that made Scott and I just kind of look at each other, and he was like, it's so weird being here. It feels like my father wants to be here. And we're just kind of like, oh, okay. So, yeah.
Wow. I guess if you spent your whole, all of your time and your energy and resources into, one particular place, it makes sense that someone would just stick around in the hereafter.
Yeah.
And the footsteps thing, man, I've experienced that before too. When I was pretty young, maybe around 13, and that really freaked me out in a place that was supposedly haunted. So I already had that preface as well. And it definitely had my ears perked up just listening for anything else that might happen. In that same particular place, I overheard somebody chopping wood outside at like 3 a.m, and no one's up chopping wood out in that cold. It was the winter time.
Right.
So yeah, very cool experiences. I appreciate you coming down and sharing that for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to be here.
That was a nice little anecdote and tidbit from Matt. Thank you again, Matt, for sharing that with us. And he actually contacted me the next day after having talked to the property owner and manager there where he works, just to make sure he didn't get the story wrong. And it's a little weirder even than he mentioned. The man did not shoot himself in one of the garage bays. apparently he lay down in a freezer chest and just let his life slip away. I guess, getting hypothermic. They say it's a peaceful way to die, but I don't see why anyone would just choose to do that. Anyway, I spoke to another Matt not too long ago. Oh yeah, I had a guest on named Matthew Keene right before October, and the man's been living a really haunted life over the last couple of years. And I asked him if things would get worse in October for him. As the legend goes, the veil starts to thin around that time. And he said that usually, yes, that is the case. So I told him I prayed for him and asked if he would keep us in the know. Maybe I should call him, see what's going on.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you been?
I've been okay. Just cold. It's been real cold.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, and I just took up trout fishing for the first time this year, and it's you basically stand out there till your fingers turn to icicles, man. It's pretty rough.
Oh, I know.
It's been a while since the last time we talked, and just like as a brief reminder for everybody who has listened, since it's probably been a while since they heard, you were the one on our previous episode called I Escaped Hell and It Followed, and you had an accident at work which plummeted you into some sort of dark abyss where you believe you were taken to hell, screaming and torment, and something grabbed your ankle, and a gleaming figure pulled you out of that situation. And ever since, your life has just been sort of kind of fantastically haunted by all manner of things. One thing I wanted to touch on since the last time we talked, you said there was a hat man or a shadow man who gave his name to you, and the name was Tobal. So I did a little bit of research on that to see if I could find anything in demonology in the archive somewhere about that particular name. And all I was able to find was a video game by the same name. And I was like, oh man, I'm not going to find anything past this video game, because it was just pages and pages of this video game. So that was kind of a dead end for me. But yeah, I wanted you to give us an update about everything that happened in October, because you said that things sort of ramp up around that time. So how have things been for you in general?
Well, yeah, October was more interesting than it has been in the past couple years. Well, since last year anyway. I know since the last time we talked, literally the day that the interview came out, my house caught on fire.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is really strange timing.
Yes, it was. I don't know. I don't believe in coincidences. I think everything happens for a reason, but that's just very strange that of the day the interview comes out that my house catches on fire.
Yeah, I would say so. And what was the cause of that fire? Do they know?
It was an electrical fire from the internet modem.
Yeah, let that be a lesson to everyone out there. Make sure your modem stays pretty clean, I guess. I'm not sure if that's exactly what happened with the dust catching, but I know those things can get pretty dusty, and that does turn into a fire hazard.
Yeah, I just never even would have figured something like that would have caught on fire.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, they don't very often.
No, because those are pretty safe devices.
Yeah.
Because there's something that always runs all the time, and they have to run all the time for like a continuous source of power is, I guess, what I mean. Because that's what I was electrician and stuff, and I understand a lot about electrical. And just for what they are, they shouldn't be much of a fire hazard. I mean, I know they can have faults and stuff inside of them, but there was nothing that should have been wrong with that one that should have caused it to be a fault.
Just my curious mind, what brand of modem did you have?
I'm not sure. It's the one that Spectrum provides.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have nothing. I mean, we still get, technically, here's a little fun thing. We still get our water from Springbox out of the mountain.
Oh, wow.
That's run by a family up in our holler.
Well, that's probably some of the best water you can get, really.
Yeah.
It's not been softened. All the minerals are probably still in it, right?
Yeah, it's lime water, but I mean, other than that, it's just hard on your pipes.
And you were just telling me earlier that you were having some water pipe issues.
Yeah, all this cold ain't been good on them.
No, it's been terribly, terribly cold lately. I mean, cold has swept almost the entire United States for the most part. People are getting snowstorms up in Idaho. We're actually sort of lucky, even though it's still been well below freezing.
Yeah, we had the snowstorms, but we've had the sheer drop in temperature.
Like I said, I was out fishing earlier, and the whole lake is pretty much ice. It's like ice fishing right now,
Yeah,
and I've never seen that.
that's what we have here. Is it's pretty much all the water's frozen. I've not seen it like this in a long time.
So, the day that we set that interview out, your modem caught fire, and that was right at the beginning of October.
Yep. And I know too, like also like the day that I first spoke to you and did my interview with you, I walked back in the living room and I seen a pale creature looking. I can't exactly. It just was a pale figure that was in the field across from my house. And I tried to get my mama to see if she could see it, but she couldn't see nothing. And it looked like it did like that predator effect across it.
Oh wow, that kind of glimmering,
Yeah,
shimmering.
the glimmer shimmer. But it looked like it did that after I noticed it. But where I knew where it was, I could still pick it out. But she couldn't pick out nothing up there. Also, and then later that week, I had something was whistling at my mom's dog. I was outside and there was something, just, you could hear it. And didn't sound like a bird. It sounded like a person whistling at him. And he was stood at attention off at the side of the house, like looking off in the wood line. Because they live in a house behind us up on the hillside. And he's a big old husky. He's normally not afraid of nothing, but
Did it look like it had him spooked?
yeah, he was spooked. He
Hmm.
he was he was not comfortable. I know that he was not comfortable.
Yeah, you're right. Huskies aren't terribly afraid of much.
And I went up there and put him in the house so nothing happened with him, but I felt eerie up there when I went up near that side of the house. Like something just didn't feel right.
And do you normally get that sort of feeling when you're around there?
No. I mean, unless something weird's going on, I don't feel that. Unless something weird, like I said, unless something weird's going on, I don't feel no off-putting feelings. The area feels fine, normal. But there are times when I do feel like I have a sixth sense, and it's just like this off-putting feeling, like a nervousness in my gut that there's just something not right now. There's something on the wind that don't make sense.
Yeah, maybe something moved in.
I don't know. I know. And then too, like a few days after that, like also around the 1st of October, my mom said she saw a coyote the size of him, and he's 100-pound husky.
Yeah, that's big for a coyote.
Yeah. I was like, good Lord, if there was a coyote that size, that don't make sense. Normally they're half the size of that.
Yeah, it'd be more like a wolf at that point.
Yeah.
Coyotes are like halfway between a fox and a wolf, I always thought.
Yeah. That's what I'm used to seeing them as and stuff. I mean, I've seen some good sized ones that are about like the size of some small dogs. I mean, about the size of some medium dogs around here. But if that was the size of him, that would have been. That just made me wonder if that was not something else pretending to be a coyote.
Yeah, well, you had made mention of a skinwalker before.
I have, and that's what I was leaning back towards was that again, and because it seemed like it moved up toward my parents' house and was tormenting with them for a little bit.
Really, what did they go through?
They had stuff like smacking on their house, and they heard noises outside of their house. And see, they normally never had anything go on up there, but then they started having like noises outside of their house. Um, Something would smack on their house. My mom's seen that giant coyote. Um, and the dog, the animals would be off in the house. Like they would run and look out the windows like they never would before. And their hair would stand on end at random times that they'd be looking out the window. And Zuko was more timid to go outside. That's the dog.
Yeah, the dog's reaction to these things are definitely very telling as to what you might have around.
And during October, I heard more whistling at night than normal. But I never could place it if it was actually a bird or if it was something else. Because it didn't sound like a bird to me, but sometimes you can't always tell if it is or not.
What was the whistle like?
Trying to think of how to explain it. I can't whistle.
Okay.
I've never been where I got my face hit. I ain't able to whistle. I can't really. I'm trying to think of what's the way to put it. It kind of would flutter, like it would be like high pitched, and then it would flutter a little bit.
Sort of a warbling.
Yeah, but it didn't sound quite like a bird when it did it. It sounded like a person doing it.
Yeah, whistling and mimicry are sometimes pretty well associated with strange creatures in the woods. So that, I mean, it could be. I'm not going to say that it definitely is, but you know better than I do, being the one who's living out there and hearing the noises.
I just never knew if it was a mockingbird or not. That's the only thing. Still, I hadn't seen a mockingbird in our area in years, but I just didn't know if randomly there'd one been come back or not.
Yeah, well, I certainly wouldn't know mockingbird if I did see one. I'm not really much of a bird expert by any means, so I could be easily fooled, I'm sure. But you also had mentioned in our previous interview that there was a woman, I think, standing on your truck, who
That
was also in the back seat.
that figure, the old lady,
Mm-hmm.
and I haven't seen her. I haven't seen her in my dreams or around no more. But I've not had like only physical sighting I've had of anything was that day after or the day of that I did my interview with you personally. I've only thing had like it's just noises and just heightened like hearing stuff and with my house catching on fire and the banging and noises like that. And then I had a weird dream of I hold on, I think I'm getting myself confused on dates. Um, I did have one more dream of her and she like did I say the thing of her like she was wearing a deer skull and taking that off. It was like I was having more of those Inception type dreams of like a dream within a dream.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know how many people. I think people. I don't know how many people have had those or not. I've asked other people about them. They're like, I don't know what you're talking about. And some people do, some people don't. And I was having one where it kept like every time it felt like I woke up in the dream, I was still in the dream. And it felt like finally I got to a point in it. I was being tormented in my dream, but I knew I was dreaming. It's like I was lucid dreaming. But every time I thought I woke up, I'd be back in that middle between state of lucidity and dreaming. And but finally, I got to a point in it that I woke up into like a dark forested area, and there was that woman again, but she was like all stretched. It was like a depiction of the classic Wendigo. It's how she looked, but she was wearing, and instead of it being a deer head, she was wearing a deer skull as a like a mask.
Yeah, it'd have to be a pretty big deer.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
No,
I mean,
I know what you're talking about. Sorry. You can keep going.
oh, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry about that.
No, I was interrupting you.
But I mean, she was wearing it as a mask, and like she looked over at me and would just like slowly took her hand up and like peeled it off her head, and just was just like slowly walking towards me and said something, and it sounded like it was in a Native American language. And then, like as she lunged toward me, is when I woke up for the final time. I was actually awake.
So did you wake up multiple times and she was still in your next dream layer when
Yeah.
you woke up in that next dream? Oh, wow. So I know what you're talking about with the dreamception sort of thing. There was a man that I don't remember his name who was studying lucid dreaming and writing a book about it. And he had gotten to this point where he would wake up and just be in another dream reality so many times that he wasn't sure he would ever get out of it. And he ended up just washing his hands of the whole thing and quitting the practice of lucid dreaming because he thought he was going to go crazy if he just kept on waking up and not knowing what was real and what wasn't.
It terrifies me. I do that without wanting to. I've never tried to personally lucid dream. I do that without even trying.
Yeah, and some people can, some people can't. But I know that it is one of those things where the more you try to practice it via whatever methods that are used to practice it, you can get better and better at it, make it occur more often. I think I've only had that happen once in my life where I felt like the dream felt real.
With me, with dealing with all these entities, and especially when the demons came around, it occurred so much that I don't like feeling like that. I don't like feeling like my dreams are real and not knowing what's real and what's not, if I'm asleep or if I'm awake.
Yeah. Well, I guess it depends on how pleasant the dream is in the first place. 'Cause I've woken up before and just been like, wow, that felt so real. It was so cool. But that's the only time I've ever had one. So I don't know what it would be like if it was a lucid nightmare per se.
Most of mine have been negative, so that's why I don't want that to happen. I guess that's where I guess I've not had the positive ones, because I've heard about a lot of people having those positive experiences, but then they turn negative if they
Mm-hmm.
keep doing it too much, because it's like once they keep opening themselves up so much that something finds them and it starts to follow them in their dreams, and like it is attached to them and they have to stop doing it in order for it to lose their tracks of them and stuff. I don't know. It's weird. I've heard a lot of weird things that go along with lucid dreaming.
Oh, yeah. The stories are boundless, and all the things that can be encountered are also limitless. There's stories about just about any kind of weird dreamscape people go to.
Yeah, I mean, because you still don't really know what you're doing when you're dreaming, because are you opening your mind more to the universe and traveling places, or are you just in your own little imagination?
And that is the question there, isn't it? Are you actually tapping into some strange other reality, other world, other dimension via your astral body? Or are you just, in a sense, your brain is kind of making things up as it goes?
Because I know I at one time started to lucid dream where I was back in hell and would have nightmares and dreams of being back down there, and that wasn't too long ago, and it was, but I got to freely walk around down there instead of being pinned like I was when I went during my accident, and that was terrifying too. But I don't know if that was my imagination of like PTSD reliving that stuff, or if I was really doing that.
Yeah. A lot of people do relive trauma via dreams. And your situation sounds like it could certainly qualify as traumatic. I don't think there's anything scarier than being in hell.
Yeah. I know that. Yeah, I never want to go back there again. That was the worst experience of my life.
Yeah, well, I don't think that's going to be your fate, all things considered.
I hope not. I've done everything I can to change that fate.
So, have you done anything recently in order to try to keep these things away at bay? Tried anything new?
I've tried to. I still go to church and still pray and do all the things Christiany, but I've also been like incorporating with my Native American heritage into it too. I look at it like, I guess God gave us these earthly things to use as well. So for us to use them, I don't look at them as like a pagan thing, and people might look at me weird for that, but I don't look at them as like pagan beliefs. In way, if God gave us the earth to use, and we can use the earth to also keep us safe from the evil that's of the world, we should.
Yeah, there seems to be. You said you were Cherokee, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there seems to be some sort of practical uses for spiritual purposes of some of the things that come naturally from the land. You see that we talked about it a bit in my Appalachian episodes, where people will use, some would say, magical practices using herbal remedies, and that comes, of course, from the Cherokee. When the settlers came over and mixed in with the Cherokee, there was some of those practices handed over.
Yeah, the Cherokee gave them many medical practices and many spiritual practices from back then that still carry over to today. I think one of them, wasn't it? Didn't the Cherokee introduce the settlers to fairy stones? I think.
I don't know. I haven't heard of it.
I know. It was one of them Native American tribes that introduced the settlers to fairy stones, I think.
So what is a fairy stone?
It's like it's a little stone. The way it breaks off from the rock, it looks like a little cross.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of those somewhere in Virginia, I believe.
Yeah.
Cross stones. I got to remember where that was. My sister sent me a link to it.
I can't remember exactly where in Virginia that is, but I have one.
Fairy Stone Lake Drive in Stuart, Virginia, the Fairy Stone State Park.
Okay.
Home of the Lucky Fairy Stones.
That's right. It is a state park. I forgot about that.
It says here it's just off the Blue Ridge Parkway.
Yeah, because my mama gave me one from there.
Yeah, so if anybody's interested in checking that out, that is a little state park with hiking trails, and along the hiking trails you can just find those fairy stones everywhere.
And
I've actually been meaning to go out there, and I just, sometimes you get bogged down in all the stuff you got to do day to day. You don't really plan a trip like that.
Yeah. I want to go. That's someplace I want to go because my mama's told me about it and told me how pretty and stuff it is.
Yeah, it looks like it'd be really nice. They got a little lake there. Lots of woods. Just seems like a nice place to be.
Oh, I forgot to tell you, too, that I had my first Bigfoot sighting since my first actual Bigfoot sighting since the last time I talked to you, too.
Really?
Yes.
That's incredible. Tell me all about it.
I went to a cryptid con. It was called Wild and Weird West Virginia, and it happened.
Yep, I've heard of that.
It happened up in Logan County, West Virginia, and I went to the night investigation that was led by Hellbent Holler, and they went through like a safety thing at first, and we got to meet like a bunch of people that was there and stuff, and we went out, and as we were going out to the trail for the little night investigation, all the power in the lodge, the hotel lodge and conference place, goes out. And there was no wind, there was no storm or anything. There was nothing that should have really caused the power to go out. And a funny thing is that they do say that the hotel is haunted. by a young spirit of a woman. And but we get out there on the trail. The first stop we had was at like a night vision camera set up. And then the next stop we had was at a parabolic microphone. When we get to the parabolic microphone, they were explaining how it's used and stuff, and I was the first one to get on it. And when I get on it, I hear a clicking. And it's not a normal clicking that you hear in the woods. I can't exactly describe. It sounds like your fingers clicking in a way. And I'm like, that don't sound normal. It don't sound like something you hear in the woods. And when I get off, I looked at the lady. Her name is Jessie. And I said, there's some kind of clicking going on down there. It could have been your fingers or maybe your tongue clicking. But
Okay.
when I said that, one of the leaders of the whole convention was out there with us. His name is Ron. He brought a thermal with him. And he was looking on his thermal down through the bottom of the bottom of the cliff line, because where we were at was almost like a sheer cliff. For a normal person, you would have needed ropes and gear to get down in there. And it wasn't an easy cliff to come down. And there was no lights going on down in there or anything. So so other people are looking at the microphone and listening to it. And then finally someone else got on and said, I heard something moving down in there. And finally Ron says, I got something on thermal. And sure enough, it wasn't, you could see as you looked at the video, it was an upright figure. And you just watched it move all of a sudden to, I can't remember if it's still left or right, but you just watched it move to left or right. And you looked like just a person, like a figure standing straight up and down, and it just moved away.
Wow. That's very rare indeed.
I was I was shocked. I'm like, how in the world, with all these people here, it would happen tonight?
Yeah, I would have been losing my mind, man. That's awesome. It's not often an investigation picks up a thermal image of one of these things.
I know. I mean, you couldn't make it out where it looked like what a Bigfoot would be described as. You can tell it's an upright figure and that they move off to the side. But with what we've seen in person, I mean, there would have been no reason. I mean, there was nobody down there using a light. There was nobody down there doing anything.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And from what I hear, a person like wearing clothing would look a bit different, a bit more irregular on a thermal image than something that is, a constant temperature all throughout the body.
Yeah, and it was a constant because they had it on like white hot, and you could see like a decent image through the whole thing of not, and it didn't just look like it looked pretty like, how do I want to, I'm looking for my words to say it right, fluent through the whole image of body temperature.
Yeah, very much uniform throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds pretty legitimate to me. Was there any way for you guys to get some sort of a size reference or anything like that?
There was some trees beside it. I mean, they went down in there the next day and looked around and got references. Like, they did a video about it and got references and stuff. And they found a track too.
What kind of trap?
Or a track.
Oh, a track. I'm sorry.
A big barefoot print down there.
Very nice.
And another little fun thing was when we were leaving that area, the lights did not come back on to the hotel until we were back out of the trail.
That's very odd.
Yeah, that's
so when you were leaving or about to leave, that's when all the power goes out. So you were there for that. You guys do this investigation, and the power comes on right when you get back.
Yep.
Wow. Well, as you say, you don't believe in coincidences. I have my doubts as to whether or not that has anything to do with it, but I'm not going to say it doesn't.
Yeah, no, just weird. We came for something spooky, and we got something spooky.
Yeah, sounds like you sure did. Was that the entirety of the investigation? You guys got the thermal and then just headed back?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, and they showed us like some other thing. They had Hellbent Holler had their own thermal set up, and like we tried to go over there and see if we could catch anything on their thermals, but we couldn't. And because it was like a bowl of that area, because the way that trail was shaped, it was like almost like a bowl. But when we got to the other side of the bowl, for some reason we couldn't pick nothing up on their thermals. It was like the thing just moved away quietly, and you never saw
Yeah,
it
it's
again.
just gone. It sounds like you got a pretty good lesson in high level squatch investigation.
Yeah, honestly, we did, and I'm just shocked as could be that we seen something, because I figured as many people and stuff was there, and as loud as people were being and stuff, you know, we wouldn't even see a deer.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly my thoughts. When you get a pretty sizable group, you're pretty likely to scare things away.
I mean, and that's what I figured. But no, I was blown away. I really was. I was blown away. I mean, that's the only thing I could honestly figure it would be, and is something of that of more paranormal nature, because I seen how that cliff looked and how everything it did. I mean, it's just for a person to get down in there in the middle of the night with no gear and not use a light down in there to see. It's because there was no light shining through the trees. I was just surprised.
Yeah, well, what I've heard from countless Sasquatch reports is that those things can get up and down a cliff with immaculate grace, even sometimes carrying a carcass of a deer or something like that. You know, hauling a pretty big load can 1 hand, 2 feet, just scale a cliff in seconds.
Yeah, that's what I've heard that before, and their grace in the woods is amazing.
It's certainly unparalleled.
Like they have us beat when it comes to moving in the woods.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're in their environment in which they completely outclass you. So it's not really a great idea to try to confront them by any means. But
No,
just to sit and watch is certainly fun. I mean, it doesn't seem like these things are going to usually try to mess with you by any sort of methods. They're usually pretty reclusive. They try to stay out of your way. You stay out of their way.
yeah, for the most part.
I remember last time we talked, you had mentioned that you had what was possibly a stick structure somewhere at the end of your road. I
Up
think you said.
up in a holler above my house.
Okay.
It was at
Yeah, I'd actually gone out with a friend of mine recently, and I don't know why I didn't take a video. I just wasn't thinking of it. I never really do think of taking a video when I find something weird. But this person told me that there was some weird stuff going on out in this forest road in Buena Vista, Virginia. So we drove down there and looked around, and she didn't even want to go up the forest road. And I said, no, I got to hike this and see what you're talking about. And looking everywhere, there was just sign upon sign of stick structures, weird trees bent over with a log placed on the end. So it just makes this bending arch. Tons of them. I noticed one and I keep looking around. There's another one. There's another one. There's another one. Whole bunch of logs that didn't seem like they fell in the patterns that they're in. They were quite obviously placed. And I just couldn't believe it. I've never seen anything like that in my life.
That's crazy.
So I think I'm gonna go back out there sometime soon if I can and get a video to document all the different structures, because I saw a good 14, 15 of them. And that was before she said, we need to turn around and go back. I don't like this place.
Yeah, that's interesting. That is very interesting.
Yeah, I'd never seen anything like that before. In places where I thought that Sasquatch would be, I've never seen quite so many signs.
Hmm. I've always wanted to go up to Buena Vista to look around in that area and stuff. Also
Oh, it's gorgeous.
because I know too that's where Buena Vista is also where that that murder happened back in 2011 to that one guy on the Appalachian Trail.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, near Buena Vista anyway. It was I can't remember exactly what shelter it was, but it was near Buena Vista. His name was Alex something. I think his name was Alex.
Oh no, that freaks me out. My name's Alex, and I've hiked the AT in Buena Vista.
Well, and there was another one place near called Panther Falls, I think.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
There was a murder there too.
Let me look up Panther Falls because I think that might be close to me.
It's
In fact,
like
I'm almost sure it is.
both of those murders happened within 30 miles of each other, and they didn't know if they were connected or not. And I always wondered if there was more to them than just, because I always thought there was more to them than just a person doing them. But that's me, because I mean, there might have been a person that did them, but I always think there's more to them than just that.
Okay, yeah, Panther Falls is in Amherst, and I'm looking at a picture of it right now on virginia.org, and I have definitely been there. It's a really deep swimming hole.
Yeah, guy went up there, and like people seen him, and then like literally they left, and he got murdered as soon as they left.
Well, I will say there are some crazy people out in that area.
And then like somebody like 30 up near a shelter on the AT trail got murdered about 30 miles from Panther Falls.
Yeah, this is everything my mother warned me about because when I went hiking the AT, I was just by myself, and and she was so worried.
Yeah, that's one of the ones that they don't talk about. A lot of people don't talk about for some reason.
Yeah, well, it's definitely bad for business.
Yeah, like people mentioned the one down my way, like the one about Randall Lee Smith, but people don't mention that one for some reason. It's just, I don't know. That's just one of them cases. I think's more to it than just people, though.
Yeah, what makes you think that?
Just the way. I mean, there's things that make you think people, but there's just, I don't know. It's just something in me makes me think that both victims were killed at age 30. And how would the person know that unless they told him, I guess, yeah, but it's just weird.
Yeah, well, there's definitely nothing normal about murder.
No, it ain't. I know that, but it's just, I don't know. That's one of the things that just always makes me think there's more to it than.
Yeah, well, there very well could be. I've not looked into either case because this is my first time hearing about them.
Yeah, I always wanted to go up there and just look around the areas.
Yeah, well, definitely don't go alone.
I don't plan on it. I'm too close to the age.
Yeah, I feel you there. Yeah, well, I plan on getting some good adventures in once the weather gets a little warmer. It's, like I said, it's been really bad lately, and I've not been able to spend more than maybe 2 hours outside.
Yeah.
But hopefully here soon I'll be able to go out and check out some of these spots that I've been meaning to.
That's what I'm wanting to do. And someone told me over here that around Burke's Garden, that's a area near me that's like not even, I guess it's about a 30-minute drive for me. Mostly because you got a mountain to go over. If you walk the ridgeline of Burke's Garden, a lot of people have been reporting reports of Squatch activity up in there. And I've been.
Where'd you say that was again?
Burke's Garden. It's like 30 minutes from where I live. It's actually,
look at that.
The Appalachian Trail runs through there.
Okay, yeah. Visit tazewellcounty.org, Burke's Garden.
Everyone calls it God thumbprint.
Yep, God's thumbprint and the garden spot of the world. That sounds beautiful. Wow, look at that. The overhead image looks incredible.
It is. It's like it's nothing but a giant farm community, and it's gorgeous over there. And there's a rock place on it that you can look out and see all over the garden called Raven's Rock from the AT, and that's real nice. But I've just heard that there's a lot of activity been going along across that ridge line.
Yeah, well, when you look at that ridge, it's hard to imagine there can't be something hiding in there. I mean, it's like a big field on top of it, like a circular plateau, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Meteor crater.
Is that what it is?
That's what I've always thought it was. That's what I've been told before it was.
It kind of does look like that. It looks like a meteor just smashed down on top of a mountain and flattened out the top of it.
Yeah.
Well, next time I hike the AT, I'm going to have to start going south, because that's like the portion of Virginia I haven't done. I've done everything from Buena Vista up to Hampton Roads, or not Hampton Roads, Harper's Ferry. So now I got to do the southern part of it.
I got you. Yeah, the southern.
I'm just not sure I'm going to go out alone next time.
I feel you. Yeah.
You know, there was a story I heard on, I don't know if it was a podcast or not. It was somewhere on YouTube. A man was relating a story, and he was an Irishman who came to the U.S. to hike the AT, and he was going solo and ended up being stalked by something in the woods. And he ended up building a camp and a fire on a stream bank or a river bank. And he said he could hear this thing circling his camp all night. So he fashioned a spear, and he just started shouting at it and kind of challenging it until it went away. He said it sounded like huge footsteps just circling his camp.
That's why even if I have to pack a little heavier, I would always bring extra something to protect myself with.
Yeah. I mean, at least a pistol's not a bad idea.
No.
And I'm not talking a snub nose, but something a little bigger.
Yeah.
My mom used to do a lot of backpacking when she was in her youth, and she has this famous story about being near a campground, I think, and there was this bear that was just getting too friendly, and it was going through all their stuff. And they reported it to a park ranger, and the park ranger just said, hey, he was talking to some ladies and trying to mac on them. So he was just like, yeah, that bear's just old Betsy. She's fine. Don't worry about her. And eventually the bear actually came up and attacked one of the people in my mother's hiking group. And so one of the guys luckily had a revolver on him. He pulled that thing out and shot the bear dead. Otherwise his friend would have been killed.
He worried about one thing instead of worrying about what they should do.
Yeah.
That's how most people are, though, anymore.
Don't feed the bears, people. That's the lesson there.
What they tell you.
Yeah, and it's true. You don't want to habituate bears to people. It's just not natural.
Because then they get abused to you so much, and then they get too used, and that's where they think their food comes. They can get food from you, and bad things happen.
They get greedy and demanding. So are there any other weird occurrences that have happened in the past couple of months you want to share with us?
Honestly, right now, since October, I can say things have been fairly quiet besides just hearing noises every now and then. And other than that, I've not really had no more strange dreams or any more crazy occurrences, me or any of my family. But I don't think I have a feeling things are going to pick up since I talked to you again.
Yeah, maybe. And it's good that it hasn't gotten too bad. I mean, the fire's pretty bad.
Yeah.
But
that really
I was worried these things would start coming back and beating you up again at night or whatever. You know, all the crazy stuff that had happened before might return.
No, I did have a couple nights though that I felt something dark in the house and I felt like it wanted to do me harm. But I stayed awake and just prayed at it and I just wouldn't let it have at me.
That's good. And like I said, man, you've been in my thoughts and prayers for the past about 2 months now. I guess it's been about 3 months since we last talked.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully that's helping with the situation as well, keeping things away.
I believe it is. I appreciate that.
No, you're welcome. Anytime, brother. Well, thanks for the update, man. I think we've covered pretty well with things going on around your home and your area. And I'm sure we'll hear more about it in the future.
I'll keep you informed, I promise.
Thank you.
Oh, not a problem, sir.
It is always a pleasure to talk with Matthew. The man has got good stories and a great personality. He's been very supportive of the show ever since he found it, and I'm just happy we could have him on. If anybody else wants to be supportive of the show without making any sort of monetary contributions, like I said in the beginning, send me an email. We're trying to do a few vlog-style adventures as well, so if you know any good places to be looking around in Virginia as far as places that weird things have been seen happening and where weird stories have been told to occur, local legends and whatnot, send us that information. I'd love to go out there and show people some of the weirder places in Virginia and some of the more beautiful places in Virginia as I go out and explore. And as we're going to be getting into the warmer months soon, yeah, I'd really like to start doing a lot more of that. But in other news, really quickly, I wanted to mention to everyone that 2 documentaries recently came out, and if you are UFO heads, you're going to absolutely documentaries, I think. The first one's a documentary by someone that we mention quite often here on the show, David Paulides. He has done his 3rd Missing 411 documentary, and this one is called The UFO Connection. It's got a lot of great information, really makes you wonder. When people are out there in the wilderness and completely disappear without a trace, what is happening to them? Well, many speculate it is alien abductions. Sometimes they don't come back. That could very well be true. And the second one, even more interestingly, is a documentary by James Fox called The Point of Contact. And get this, in 1996, there was a UFO crash that is now considered to be called the Virginia Incident. And I'm not talking about Virginia, United States, I'm talking about Virginia, Brazil. Which, having wondered for a while why we had so many listeners tuning in from Brazil, even though this is a show in English and not in Portuguese, it all kind of makes sense now. The Virginia incident is just like Roswell we had in New Mexico back in the 1940s, but even more recently, so many of the witnesses are still alive. People who have seen biological non-human entities and downed spacecraft from presumably other worlds. Definitely go take a look at those documentaries. You will not regret it. I'm glad to be back. This has been Alex Koska, and I will see you next time on Odd Virginia. Good night, everyone.